Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to another edition of Inside the News. I'm German Abel, sitting in today, as usual, as your host. It's Saturday morning, so it means we dive deeper into topics that is of interest to you and everyone else here in St. Kitts and Nevis, what's impacting us locally, regionally, and internationally. As you know, nothing happens and does not impact us across St. Kitts and Nevis, whether or not it's locally, regionally, or internationally. Today, we'll be looking at the Caribbean Telecommunications Union meeting that will be happening later this month and to an extent into next month. We have a really good group of individuals here, very esteemed group of individuals here to talk about CTU's work and what will be happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis during the forum that will be held here. But before we do that, we'll take a quick break and then we'll come right back and jump right into our discussions.
TDC Financial Services, we're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services, we are strong. TDC Financial Services, this is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go round.
Yes, welcome back. As I said before we took the break, we will be discussing CTU's work and their engagement here in St. Kitts and Nevis. But let me first introduce our panelists for today. Yes, as I did mention, we have a very powerful group of individuals who are joining us this morning. We have with us Mr. Nigel Casimir, the Deputy Secretary General and Head of Regional Policy Development at the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. Mr. Casimir, good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
And we have with us Tariq Mohammed. He's the Project Officer of International Telecommunications Union, Chair and Coordinator of the Caribbean Youth, IFG, Vice Chair of IEEE, Young Professionals out of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
And we have also with us Ms. Camille Bruno Odin, Acting Director of the Department of Technology, the Ministry of ICT, host here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Good morning, Ms. Odin.
Good morning, Mr. Ava, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And we also have with us Mr. Jamie Morris. Good morning, Mr. Morris.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here as well.
He did tell us that he was a support here, so I do hope he provides a lot of support. So we will start with Mr. Casimir. Mr. Casimir, give us a sense of your engagement that you'll be having here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's start there first.
Okay, thank you very much. The event is a week long. We call it the CTU ICT Week. ICT, of course, for the uninitiated means Information and Communications Technologies. And the CTU, Caribbean Telecommunications Union, is CARICOM's specialist agency for ICT. So things telecommunications, things information technology, and so on. The CTU as an intergovernmental organization dealing with the policies associated with these things the policies for development and use and management of them, is the organization that is really has the mandate for advising our member governments, and we have 20 member governments in the Caribbean that are members of the CTU on matters related to ICT. As regards ICT Week, that's our signature annual event. That is where we bring together the hierarchy of the CTU, and the hierarchy of the CTU comprises the ministers responsible for telecommunications and ICT from around the Caribbean. All our member states, they would gather for their annual meeting. And we also have a meeting of our executive council, the CTU Executive Council, which is representatives from those very ministries, the high-level government officials from those ministries. So with the Executive Council and what we call the Conference of Ministers taking place, what we've done and what we do on an annual basis is basically enrich that gathering by adding to it additional events, catering for capacity building among our ministers and high-level policy officials, engagements with the local technical community and digital type businesses, just technology developers, the general public even, right? To raise the profile of ICT, to encourage the development of ICT-based applications, the digital economies, and basically also even ICT industries in the various countries. We move the ICT Week around annually, and basically the host nation, and then this year it's St. Kitts and Nevis, we do some special events associated with building the capacity within St. Kitts and Nevis. So apart from the two main meetings that I've mentioned, Executive Council and General Conference of Ministers, we'll have a ministerial forum. We'll have a Caribbean ICT Youth Network Forum, and Tariq will talk more about that. We also will have a meeting of our ICT regulators from around the Caribbean. So all the regulators from our member states also getting together in St. Kitts. We also do engagements with regional and international organizations, and this year we will have the International Telecommunication Union being represented by its Secretary General, and she's based in Geneva. Within CARICOM, I mentioned CTU is the specialized ICT institution within CARICOM. Within CARICOM, they also have an arrangement whereby each head of government is responsible for some specific aspect of governance. For science and technology, which includes ICT, the lead head of government is the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, and he will also be visiting St. Kitts and Nevis to basically open the ICT Week for us. So we have prime ministers, we have secretaries general, we have a secretaries general from the Commonwealth Telecoms Organization will also visit, and we'll have via remote participation the Secretary General from the African Telecommunications Union. So it's a big regional event with international participation. And I also didn't mention that in the week we'll also have special events related or targeting the public of St. Kitts and Nevis. I didn't mention the overall theme, which is bridging technologies for a sustainable and inclusive future. So sustainable and inclusive future is the vision, and in the week through all the various events we'll be examining how ICT and the various technologies associated with it can help to get us there. Inclusive, one special event I need to mention is that on the Thursday of this week, we'll be having special workshops for persons with disabilities. So inclusive must include everyone. We want to leave no one behind. and the deputy or the acting director from St. Kitts will talk more about the specific other events that they would be having for the St. Kitts public, including a secondary school forum. So that is an overall sense of what we'll be getting into and the type of participation that we'll be having. Thank you.
Okay, before I move on, I want to get from you because we on this program we tend to go beyond the headlines and discuss how these issues impact people in their daily life. When people hear about CTU and most Caribbean institutions, they hear about something that's way above their heads. If you could break down for the public and those listening specifically, the important role CTU plays within, I know it's telecommunications, but the important role CTU plays within the whole dynamics of the Caribbean region, because I might know, everybody on the panel might know the role of CTU, but for the ordinary man in the street, they might not necessarily grasp the concept of what CTU is and the role that you guys play. If you could dive a little bit into that for me quickly.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned it is an intergovernmental organization. What that means is that its members are the governments. Its members are governments. In our specific case, Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the relevant governments are essentially anybody in the Caribbean. The core of the CTU, what we started with, was basically the CARICOM governments, the English-speaking governments of the Caribbean. Our membership now includes all the English-speaking CARICOM countries and includes also the British overseas territories. Our membership also now includes some non-English speaking. We have Cuba as a member, and we have St. Martin, Dutch St. Martin, as a member of the CTU. So what all these governments have seen in subscribing to or joining an organization like the CTU is an opportunity for them to share resources, to develop synergies, to build cohesiveness in the Caribbean, to build capacity in the Caribbean, to facilitate greater trade and whatever else we can use technology for in the Caribbean, basically for the social and economic development of our people. So this technology thing is one tool, one means we can have to build the social and economic fabric of each of our individual member states. We are small. Each you can look at each one is small. So each one, we have limited resources. So in creating the CTU, the member governments have realized the benefit or the potential benefit of us working together, of us creating a kind of a critical mass, both from the point of view of knowledge and market size and so on, that it makes sense for us to work together to try and move all of us forward. Our area of focus, of course, is ICT. And you will realize, I mean, I'm talking to you and we're having this meeting remotely now. It's a video conference on a computer. Some people might be on their phone. We realize the dynamic nature of technology over the past very few decades. And what governments do is govern, and the way they govern is to create laws and regulations and so on. And this pace of technology has outstripped the pace at which basically government and regulations can keep up. So the response has been, okay, let's all work together. Let's see if we can understand the trends, anticipate the trends, take advantage of the benefits that are potentially there, right? And see if we can, if in working together, we can combine our capabilities to effectively manage the application and the benefits that we derive from the use of technology. So it is a sense, this CTU And in fact, as an intergovernmental organization, it's an attempt by our regional governments to come together, to work together, pool our resources to achieve the effective social and economic growth for each of our nations. I hope that offers a little bit of clarity.
Yes, you gave us a little bit of insight in terms of the role that your agency plays within the Caribbean region, and I think the
And
public has.
in
Go
fact,
ahead.
let me give us a practical example. One of the very topical things right now is artificial intelligence, right? And there is there is fear, there is all sorts of things around the proliferation of artificial intelligence applications. We, as one of the roles of CTU, is to look at technology trends, as I mentioned. So our role would be to do appropriate research into the technology and come up with policy advice for our governments, right? Take part in international dialogues that are going on in this sort of area. And that, as I said, artificial intelligence is just one example. And basically develop policy proposals, policy advice, policy briefs, and so on for governments, so that governments could be better informed as to what the potential impacts are, what the potential safeguards that are required are, and how we can use it to effect the development at our national levels.
Like that. I mean, you jumped into my next topic, which is AI and its role within the Caribbean region. But I think you gave a really good explanation in terms of what it is that the role CTU plays here in the Caribbean region. Mr. Mohammed, I want to get from you the youth involvement in ICT and the role that you and your organization will be playing within this forum.
Thank you, and thanks again for having me. So, the youth, typically the persons aged 18 to 35, which is what we're focused on, are what we call digital natives. We were born and we grew up with technology. So, what better people to, continue the movement of digitizing than the youth? The youth also represent the next generation of the leaders in the Caribbean, the next generation of developers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and regulators. So through this vision, the CTU has been working with youth over the past 2 years, well, 3 years now and plus, to include them in the various dialogues and conversations and create the opportunity to strengthen their development and enable them to contribute towards the CTU's overall mission of strengthening the region, pulling together resources, regional harmonization, and regional development. So through this initiative, CTU has been doing a few things. In 2022, they engaged youth, myself included, in the first ever Caribbean Youth Internet Governance Forum. And that's been taking place. We had the third one this year in Guyana, and that's an ongoing initiative. Now, quite apart from that, we're looking to expand the involvement of youth outside the scope of internet governance to cover the entire sphere of ICTs. That's where this upcoming Caribbean ICT Youth Network, or CIYN as we're calling it for now, has come about, where we're trying to create a network of youth in which we can strengthen and boost their networking amongst each other, amongst different countries, amongst the various industry professionals and ministries and those that actually make the decisions. So in this regard, we're having the second ever Caribbean ICT Youth Network meeting on the 30th of September, starting bright and early on the Monday morning of ICT week, and that's happening for the first half day. During this session, we'll be having a few networking activities and capacity building, really looking at strengthening skills of youth. You and Nigel both mentioned AI. That's a hot topic right now. So we'll be having a free session on, training youth on artificial intelligence, as well as cybersecurity, which is another hot topic in the Caribbean and in the tech space. Quite apart from that, we want to see, well, as we continue to fulfill this youth network and continue our initiatives, what are the different interests of youth? What are the different activities we want them to get involved in? What are different focal points and conferences and forums and events that we could look to include them? that's a key segment of the second ICT or Youth ICT Network meeting that's happening on that Monday. Hearing from the youth to see, well, what direction do we want to go in? So this will be held as a hybrid event for those in St. Kitts that can join us in person. That would be wonderful. For any viewers who can't attend in person, we're offering it online as well. So you can feel free to register and attend completely free. We'd really love to have you there. It's really, as I said, the ages 18 to 35. This is the second meeting that we're having. The first one was held at last year's ICT week in Barbados, and we're hoping to continue this initiative, get more youth involved, network with them, and overall use and leverage the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the youth to strengthen regional development.
As you talk about strengthening regional development, especially through ICT, sometimes I get the feeling that when we talk ICT, it kind of goes above, especially when we talk about the young people. And we know we're transitioning into that phase where a lot of discussions, no matter what topic it is, it has to do specifically with youth engagement and ICT, because let's be frank, I probably need to, brush off some of the cobwebs and so forth when we talk about youths, right? But there is this concern that youths at this point in time, they're utilizing the whole telecommunications and ICT not for the best of use. How is all of that being factored in at this point in this whole discussion going forward, and what discussion you guys will be having this coming week during the telecommunications week surrounding that specific topic?
So that's actually a very good point. And because we're so involved in the ICT space now, not just youth, but everyone, post-pandemic, most things have gone digital. We're always on our phones, scrolling through social media, posting pictures of ourselves and capturing the moment, sharing that with others. The increased use of ICTs also comes with the increased risk. And so we really need to understand, well, how could we be safe online? What are the safe digital practices? And how do we spread that awareness? So it's not only for people who are, engineers or technical persons to come out and get involved in the conversation. It's really for everyone, because we all benefit from ICTs. We all reap the benefits of it, and we want to ensure that everyone can use ICTs very safely and effectively and efficiently. So quite apart from the Youth Network meeting, there will be a series of other sessions and capacity building throughout ICT Week, and Nigel could probably talk on that a bit more. But really, it's about not just using ICTs or not just getting involved and saying, yes, let's learn about AI, let's learn about this and that and the other. But really, how can we safely, effectively leverage these ICTs towards our development? How do we break that stigma of technology is bad, technology is not safe, there's so many risks, but how can we really use it to benefit us and to a larger scope of it? How can we not just benefit ourselves? How can we use it to benefit our communities, our country, as well as our region? Nigel, anything else to add on that?
Yeah, just basically to emphasize the point you made that this isn't targeting like engineers and technicians sort of a thing. We appreciate that ICT is a cross-cutting thing. It underpins our way of life now. And that internet governance topic that was mentioned, the Internet Governance Forum and so on. When one looks at internet governance, the technology is just but one aspect of it, right? So yes, there are certain aspects related to the technology and making sure that people are, what we say these days, meaningfully connected. Your connection must be of a certain quality that would allow you to successfully engage in the applications that you want to use it for. So we look at, yes, we do look at connectivity and some of the high-level technical things related to using the internet, domain names and that sort of a thing. But a lot of internet governance discussions relate to the use of it, right? Legal matters, cyber security, cyber crime, what do you call this thing? IP, intellectual property. Intellectual property. Building skills of the common man in using these things. And Tariq mentioned being safe online. That's some of the things. We look at some of the abuses that take place online, the bullying and the child pornography type things and so on. So all of these things need governance. We need systems in place to deal with them, because it is the individual man in the street using this for his own specific purposes. And in fact, a lot of the people, a high percentage of the people taking part in these internet governance discussions around the world now come from the legal fraternity, right? A lot of lawyers who have specialized in this sort of a thing, and very instrumental in putting in place the type of system that we need so that we can use the technology effectively and safely. So I'll stop there.
So I guess this sort of summarizes it. It's not just about connectivity. It's about people, the skills, and ensuring that all people, households, communities, and businesses can effectively be connected. They have the appropriate skills to use the internet and technology safely and effectively, and that there is that accompanying policy and regulatory environment that would support that safe usage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the questions that keeps popping up all the time in the minds of the general public about safety and security as we go forward in the age of both AI as well as involving youth across the Caribbean region. We'll take a quick break now, and then we'll come back and continue with the discussions here on Inside the Youth.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
Give your little smartie the perfect smart start for their future with CHIP, the child investment plan from TDC Financial Services. Invest in your child's next step, and we know what's next is always changing.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
CHIP is a long-term plan with no minimum deposit, no monthly commitment, and you're guaranteed a special high interest rate per annum.
I want chip. I want chip too.
Visit TDC Financial Services today and get CHIP, the child investment plan, providing the best head start for every child.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Welcome back. We are discussing CTU's forum here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's going to be an interesting week of engagement discussing a variety of issues and policy decisions that can be had to better govern CT telecommunications and so forth in St. Kitts and Nevis as well as in the Caribbean region. I want to get from you guys, because I know there'll be 4 specific areas that will be discussed during the week here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Before I bring in the director, Tech Fest, disability, cybersecurity, and there's one other one that's slipping me right now. Give us a sense of these thematic areas that you guys will be focusing on. I know cybersecurity, that will definitely be a critical one, Mr. Casimir, as we talk about hacking and protecting the young people and all of that. Give us a sense of the 4 thematic areas that you guys will be focusing on during this week. Just before you think you're muted.
Yes, thank you. So to mention, you mentioned cybersecurity. There is a special St. Kitts and Nevis cybersecurity awareness forum that will take place on Thursday, the 3rd of October. Our week, of course, is from 30th of September to the 4th of October, Monday to Friday. And on the 3rd of October, there is the St. Kitts and Nevis Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, which is a more general public focused type of forum. Earlier in the week, on the Monday in particular, we're going to have our 22nd Caribbean Ministerial Strategic ICT Seminar. That's one of the events that we tend to enrich our ministerial gatherings with, and we enable industry practitioners and experts in the technology to address our ministers on what are some of the technology trends that are emerging, so that our ministers could better appreciate the possibilities, the risks, and so on of these things being deployed and as we go forward. So in that Ministerial Strategic ICT Seminar, there will be a panel dealing with cybersecurity as well. So that would be at the higher policymakers type of level. They'll be addressing other matters as well. I mean, just to call a topic that comes to mind, cloud computing. So how do governments use and store government's data, right? We all subject to annual hurricane season. What happens when disaster strikes? How can we sustain our government services and so on? Should we have offshore type storage, and how do we do that, and things like that? So those are policy matters that our governments would have to address, and in a seminar like this, they would get advice on the possibilities and the risks. So in that seminar, we'll be addressing cybersecurity as well. Connectivity, and the meaningful connectivity I talked about, some of the things that we'll also be talking about in that seminar and in the other meetings of the week among the government officials and the ministers. Artificial intelligence, we've talked about already on this program. There are going to be a couple of sessions related to that, and the impact of that it's going to be in our ministerial seminar. There'll probably be some discussion on items in the Executive Council and Conference of Ministers as well, and our Regulators Forum as well. We're going to have, I mentioned, other people bringing content, Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization, Commonwealth Secretariat, and so on. They have, the Commonwealth Secretariat in particular is going to do a seminar with us on digital trade, enhancing digital trade. So there are various learning opportunities for our technocrats at various levels and also our ministers related to facilitating and enhancing the use of technology for all our economic benefit and social benefit as well. I probably, any other specific theme that you might want to, the person with disabilities, I mentioned that we're going to have special workshops on the Thursday as well. And the St. Kitts and Nevis themed events, Ms. Bruno Ordain would give us the specifics on that. The Tech Fest that you mentioned, for example, right? That is being organized by the government. So I'll let them enhance it.
Ordain?
Right, so thank you again for having me. Before we move ahead though, we're discussing cybersecurity, but I think the educator in me wants to start off first by defining what is cybersecurity. Because for the average man, sometimes we're saying we're inviting the public, but still the terminology that we're using doesn't sound public friendly. So we want them to know that any process that protects networks, programs that you use, devices such as your cell phones, your computers, data on your computers. Once there's a process that protects these things, that is called cybersecurity. It prevents these devices or these programs or data from being attacked. So simply, for example, you have your national bank online banking, certain practices that you change your passwords frequently, or you use complicated password sequences. All these things come under the umbrella of cybersecurity. So teaching you how to be safe online, how to protect your data, simple things like updating your programs, updating your antiviruses, all these things encompass cybersecurity. So we want the public to understand that though it might sound technical, it applies to all of us. And we should be a part of the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum because it will teach us how to be able to navigate the web safely, and also it will teach us about the things that are coming on stream and how it would impact our lives. So as Mr. Casimir would have mentioned, we are hosting a cybersecurity awareness forum. We will have an opening address by Mr. Bevel Wooding. He's the special advisor for the strategic ICT and digital innovation for the OECS Commission. The topics that will be discussed, or we have two panels. One panel will be discussing establishing a cyber resilient organization is imperative. That would be headed by Mr. Rodney Brown, who is the CEO of eCaribbean, which is a media and management company. Then for the second one, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning in cyber defense, the implication for the Caribbean. That is going to be moderated by our own Inoite and Inanga, who is a lecturer at CFBC. So we are inviting the public to come out on Thursday, the 3rd of October from 1 in the afternoon till 4 to be a part of that Cybersecurity Awareness Forum. In terms of the Persons with Disability workshop, what makes this workshop so different is that the facilitators share the disability of the participants. So sometimes you have persons who can see, who can hear, and they're coming to tell persons who are living with that specific disability how to live their lives. But in this case, we have somebody who is blind who will be teaching the persons who are blind how to use technology to enhance their lives. The deaf facilitator will be facilitating the deaf workshop. So he in turn will be teaching how to use technology to enhance the lives of persons who have audio disability. In terms of the Tech Fest, which is on the Friday, it will be from 10 in the morning till 6 in the afternoon. And we're inviting all of St. Kitts and Nevis to come out and see what the small businesses, your established businesses, and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, how we are using technology at this time to enhance your lives. We have different booths. We have 3D printing. We will have the robotics team there. We have a gaming station. We're planning to have some VR providers. We are having a coding booth where children will be given coding challenges. We're having networking opportunities. We're going to have persons giving career advice. And we're also going to have information about career opportunities that currently exist at the ICT department as well. So we're inviting everyone to come out and terminate the week with us. The ICT week is going to be exciting, and we want all of you to participate and be there.
Sounds very much interesting. Sorry that I cannot be part of it. I would think I might cut my trip short and just come and engage with you guys.
That would be awesome.
I want to circle back to policy decisions as we talk about this entire topic of ICT. What what is the main aim that CTU wants to get out of this week? I know outside of engaging with the public in terms of bringing awareness to ICT and telecommunications and so forth, but what's the one initiative, the decisions that you want to get out of this entire engagement? Because we're in the Caribbean region. When we hear about people sitting, especially policy makers, ministers, government officials, technocrats, we have this way, especially when it comes to Caribbean institutions. And this is the saying, big wigs sitting around a table knocking glass. That's the general gist of what we hear. What do you guys want to get out of this entire week?
Well, let me say this is not a one and done event. CTU ICT Week, I mentioned at the beginning, is like our signature event that is held annually. What it is the meeting of our Conference of Ministers and our Executive Council. The ministers meet annually once a year, and the Executive Council, we typically have at least 2 meetings a year, one of which coincides with the ministers' meeting. And when the ministers meet in that particular session, we create this ICT week around it. So the core of the business that is taking place this week really relates to the internal operations and objectives of the CTU. One very interesting thing that we want to get approved or passed during the course of the IC week at the ministers' meeting in particular would be the CTU strategic plan for the next 4 years. Right? So if you're saying what is one thing that we would like out of it, yes, that's one thing. What would be the strategic plan that we would follow? Another thing that comes to mind is on the request or directive from the CARICOM heads of government, there was a request to examine the feasibility of creating a single ICT regulator for the Caribbean. And the CTU Secretariat has been spearheading the research associated with developing a recommendation back to the heads of government. Coming out of the discussion of ICT Week would be a proposal back to the heads of government as to how we deal with that request. So there are specific policy issues that the CTU is dealing with that we are bringing to the ICT Week discussions that to try to get certain specific decisions out of it. But it's not to say that we're having this event to have a specific output and that's the end of it. No, it's an ongoing process, this management of ICT, because the technology changes and develops. And as we deal with it, and as we within the CTU develop the appropriate policy proposals or advice, as the case might be, we bring them to our different fora, whether it's Executive Council, General Conference of Ministers, or other fora. Sometimes we have technical conferences that try to create a specific output recommendation, for example. Right? It's just the work of the CTU that's going on, and I've mentioned a couple of the things. In fact, a third thing would be the youth network. That youth network that we want to grow, we would hope that in being present in St. Kitts, we would inspire some of your young people to join the youth network so that it would grow and go from strength to strength. So that's, I guess, 3 areas that I could mention that we want to get out of ICT.
Just quickly, I want to put you on the spot. Policy decisions, we have a problem with implementing policy decisions. What specifically, if any, policy decisions that comes out of this particular forum meeting, especially the ministerial meeting, that you expect to be implemented or hope to be implemented, because we have an implementation deficit here in the Caribbean region?
Indeed. And just on that topic of implementation deficit, it's easy to say, but I think we need to appreciate the complexity of it as well. Any regional forum is a well-intentioned gathering of the participants to try to work together. And out of that often comes guidelines or policy recommendations and so on, or even policy positions adopted. But the individuals then have to go back to their national jurisdictions to get these things implemented. And that is where additional complexity comes in, because we are not all at the same level of development in any specific issue, right? So implementing a regional decision might be easy for country one, but a big problem for country two because they have to spend more money and blah, 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 blah. So I just want to appreciate, I just want it to be appreciated that it's not for want of trying, but there are practical difficulties associated with it, and not least of which is the resources to implement. But to answer your question specifically, I would hope that the recommendation around the single regulator would be one that would be implemented fairly quickly, because I think there is some significant support for it, and it's not. It's probably a pragmatic sort of a solution that is being put forward. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, I want to come to you, but I want to take a quick break now, and then when we come back on the other side of the break, I want to get from you. Do you think that there's enough policy initiatives for youth involvement in ICT within the Caribbean region? Because as we talk about policy decisions and so forth, and as you guys are meeting this coming week within this whole sphere, well, meeting within the CTU week here in St. Kitts and Nevis, that there's enough policy decisions or policy involvement for young people in ICT in the Caribbean region. We'll take a quick break and then we'll come back.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
TDC Financial Services. We're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services. We are strong. TDC Financial Services. This is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
People make the world go round.
And we're back here on Inside the News. I'm Jermaine Abel, sitting in today. As usual, it's Saturday morning, and we are discussing CTU Week here that will be held here in St. Kitts and Nevis, where ministers, policymakers, executives from around the region as well as internationally will be here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Everyone will be converging on St. Kitts and Nevis to discuss policy initiatives and to an extent craft decisions and initiatives to better foster an all-inclusive environment for telecommunications across the Caribbean region. Mr. Mohammed, before we took the break, I threw out a question there of whether or not you believe there's enough policy decisions and initiatives being done here in the Caribbean region that creates an environment of more inclusion of young people in ICT and decision making.
So I would actually say no in that, which is one of the reasons why this initiative on the CTU is something that we're still in the process of establishing. Even though we've had this sort of informal youth engagement for the past 3 years, 2022 to now, there is the need to officialize this sort of youth network. And we're still trying to gather some more support from the different CTU member states which are essentially responsible for making decisions at the CTU at the highest level, to get this network up and running. Now, that is one of the reasons why we want to encourage youth to come out and youth to be part of this network, so that we can showcase that there is that interest from youth in being part of the conversation, and hopefully, encourage and inspire the different regulators and governments to support as necessary.
Okay. I know I kept you guys a little bit longer than you had planned, but before I let you go, um, I want to quickly jump across to Miss O'Dane. Just give us a sense. Well, before I go to her, let me go to Jamie. Jamie, give us a sense of how preparations are coming along regarding the staging of ICT Week, well, CTU Week here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, it's very nice to be included here. I know definitely that Miss Bruno O'Dane would have more information. It's a sitting joke between us that she doesn't want to be put on the spot, but I know that she's more information there. But in terms of preparations, we've met several times as a committee. The relationship between CTU and the local planning committee has been very good. A lot of exchanges have been going on. Believe it or not, work has been around the clock effectively to ensure that the function is put off representing not only the government but also the standard that CTU has come to expect as well. On a personal level, I find this conversation this morning, I have to tell you, very engaging, very exciting. I think that the panelists have done a very good job of breaking down why the public should be involved in the work of the CTU. And I would say to you that even certain things that I heard here today, effectively I made notes of, because behind the scenes, and Ms. Bruno, I will turn to you very quickly. She's actually encouraging me to register. We had that conversation as to whether registration is still open. I know that Tariq, you mentioned it. So definitely, planning is still going on, but it's not going to be effective unless people actually attend. So I do want to say that registration is open. You can go to the website ctu.int to register. So please register. It's there for you to do so, and it will be a very engaging week of events.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here. As Mr. Casimir would have said, CTU Week is not something new to the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. They have been doing it for a while, so they already have their processes in place, and basically they are supporting us, not behind the scenes. They are the ones leading in a lot of areas. So far, our preparations are on point. We expect it to be a very exciting week, and we look forward to having the public come out. I just wanted to jump in on something that Mr. Mohammed would have mentioned. And while we create the networks for our young people, what we have to do as well is to make sure, as Mr. Casimir said, that they're meaningfully connected. Because from coming from an education standpoint, what I've recognized is that while the youth are digital natives, they are digital natives in certain areas. So social media, that area they're masters there. But in terms of meaningfully engaging technology to enhance their lives, to progress themselves, that is where they're lacking. So I think we need to educate them more. We need to engage them more for them to understand that really and truly that just social media engagement is not the purpose of technology, but it is there to basically enhance our lives in so many other ways, in terms of medicine, in terms of health, in terms of even culinary arts. There's so many things. Even our artists can use graphic art. So we just want them to be aware of what is out there so that they can make good decisions as it would affect their future in terms of career opportunities and in terms of quality of life.
Okay, I'll give the two gentlemen, starting with Mr. Mohammed, any passing comments as we begin to wind down the program.
No, I agree with the other contributions from the panelists. I think the questions were great and really focused on promoting this event. And the real closing words from me is just to encourage the young persons in particular, as I said, ages 18 to 35 is the youth network we're looking at, to register, be part of the network, and hope to see them there, either virtually or in person in St. Kitts on the 30th. So thank you.
And Mr. Cassidy, you have the final word.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks to Jamie for mentioning the website, because that's where all the information related to the events of the week may be found. ctu.int. When you go there, you'll see a big banner related to St. Kitts ICT Week. You click on it, and it takes you to a page with different tabs: agenda, registration, documents, speakers, all that sort of thing. Not everything, but some of the events are going to be live streamed or available for viewing remotely. And like Tariq, I would like to encourage youth participation in the Youth Network Forum, in particular. And that would certainly, that's an attempt basically to spur the youth of St. Kitts into the work of this regional forum. Also to encourage the public, the general public in St. Kitts to take advantage of those specially themed sessions, for example, Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, the St. Kitts Tech Fest, and so on. So go to the CTU website, and you will get the information that you need there, and including it is the CTU ICT Week, and we are being hosted by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, so we look forward to being there and having a successful September 30th.
So thank you for spending the better part of this program with us. It is really engaging, and I do hope that the public come out and support this initiative that is being undertaken by CTU this week.
We'll take a quick break now, and on the other side, we'll continue with more Inside the News.
People make the world go
Give your little smartie the perfect smart start for their future with CHIP, the child investment plan from TDC Financial Services. Invest in your child's next step, and we know what's next is always changing.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
CHIP is a long-term plan with no minimum deposit, no monthly commitment, and you're guaranteed a special high interest rate per annum.
I want chip. I want chip too.
Visit TDC Financial Services today and get CHIP, the child investment plan, providing the best head start for every child.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Delisle Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
With the WinFM Midday News, I am Kevon Brown. Our top stories. St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister leads delegation to 79th United Nations General Assembly. Grenada increases access to climate finance with UK and 5C's support. Guyana's government to launch commission of inquiry into the troubles in the early 2000s. Grenada will host the second European Union Caribbean Global Gateway Conference on Sargassum in October. ECCB applauds St. Lucia's government decision to enact minimum wage legislation. Internationally, Peru wildfires. Country declares a state of emergency. Now the details. The Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, is leading a delegation to the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in New York. The annual assembly brings together leaders and representatives from 193 member states to discuss global challenges and international cooperation. This year's General Assembly theme is Leaving No One Behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations. Discussions will focus on global peace, sustainable development, and human rights. Prime Minister Dr. Drew departed for New York on September 20th, accompanied by his wife Diana Prince Drew. The delegation also includes the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, Senior Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark, Minister of Climate Action and Environment, Naima Hazel, Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office, Shirley Tudor Tyson, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Oren Manners, Director of Public Sector Planning, Sharima Matthew, Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, Beyond Hazel, Senior Foreign Service Officer, and Denala Laplace, Research and Communications Officer. The Prime Minister will participate in several meetings and events, beginning with the Summit of the Future on September 21st, 2024. The delegation is scheduled to discuss climate change, sustainable development, and strengthening diplomatic relations with representatives from various countries. Prime Minister Dr. Drew will address the General Assembly on September 27th, 2024. In his speech, he will outline St. Kitts and Nevis' position on issues such as climate resilience, sustainable development, and international cooperation. The delegation is expected to return to St. Kitts and Nevis on September 30th, 2024. The Ministry of Climate Resilience, the Environment and Renewable Energy in Grenada has received support from the United Kingdom government and the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, 5Cs, to improve the country's ability to access climate finance and strengthen its response to climate change. Over 25 technical officers and sectoral experts were trained to develop climate projects eligible for international funding. The 5Cs conducted the capacity building workshop from September 11th to 13th, 2024. The workshop was part of the Small Island Developing States Capacity and Resilience SIDAR program for the Caribbean, which is funded by the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. The training took place as Grenada, along with its sister island Petite Martinique and Carriacou, continues recovery efforts following Hurricane Beryl. The workshop aimed to equip participants with the skills needed to design bankable climate projects that could attract funding from multilateral institutions such as the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund. Pearson Johnson, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Climate Resilience, emphasized that the partnership aims to incorporate climate resilience into Grenada's national development processes with a focus on strengthening resilience across various sectors. The collaboration with the UK and 5Cs is expected to assist in the design and implementation of climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience projects. The training provided key information to help government officials secure international climate finance and improve Grenada's preparedness for climate challenges. Victor Clark, resident British Commissioner to Grenada, highlighted the UK's role as co-chair of the Green Climate Fund and its efforts to advocate for reforms that align with the needs of countries like Grenada. Clark also noted the UK's $2 billion pledge to the GFC for the 2024-2027 period. Clark further explained that the UK's support through the SIDAR program includes providing long-term technical experts in Grenada to assist with the development of climate proposals and readiness requests aimed at speeding up access to climate finance. The workshop also covered topics such as environmental and social safeguards, gender mainstreaming, and the prevention of exploitation and harassment to ensure that future climate projects are inclusive and adhere to international standards. The collaboration was part of Grenada's efforts to strengthen its climate resilience and increase access to necessary financial resources for adapting to climate change following the onslaught of Hurricane Beryl. In regional news, Guyana's government to launch commission of inquiry into the troubles in the early 2000s. Guyana News source reports.
Vice President Barra Jagdeo has announced that the government will soon be launching a commission of inquiry into the crime spree and killings of the early 2000s during the period known as the Troubles. Mr. Jagdeo was president at a time when the country saw daily murders and execution-style killings of hundreds of young men. Mr. Jagdeo denied any involvement of his government and said that many of the people who died during the crime wave were from various ethnic backgrounds and many were not linked to criminal activity. The vice president said the government intends to get to the bottom of the events during that period, and the commission of inquiry will soon be announced by the president.
Because they have nothing new, they're trying to race back the old race thing. And notice it's 1,500 young black men that we killed. The racist issue again, to bring back the old rumors that they spread, which has been disproved over and over again, but they continue to perpetuate their lies.
The allegation of the killing of hundreds of youths by a death squad and by the police has been haunting and following the PPP for over 2 decades. It was a period under Mr. Jagdeo's presidency when drug and phantom gangs were prevalent in the country. The U.S. State Department's annual country report on human rights practices during that period iterated that the most significant reported abuses included potentially unlawful killings by the police. Public investigations rarely were conducted into the killings, and police abuses were committed with impunity. But Mr. Jagdeo described the emergence of the issue as having racial undertones.
It came up at the human rights body when we went there, which is every 10 years or 15 years you have to present there. It came up about when we're going to do this, and the terms of reference are being drafted, and soon the president will announce the COI. So we'll get to the bottom of this. We'll get to the bottom of this.
The UN Human Rights Committee had made 22 recommendations to the PP Civic Administration at the time, including a call for prompt investigations by an impartial body.
Grenada will host the second European Union Caribbean Global Gateway Conference on Sargassum in October. Grenada Broadcasting Network has the details.
Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and Felix Fernandez Shaw, Director of the European Commission's Directorate General for International Partnership, will address the event on October 1st and 2nd. It will be held under the theme Turning the Tide, Sustainable Practices and Economic Opportunities for Sargassum in the Caribbean Basin. This conference is part of the Global Gateway Initiative, the EU's strategy aimed at enhancing investments that create smart, clean and secure value chains globally. The Barbados-based EU delegation noted that since 2011, Caribbean nations have faced increasing challenges from sargassum inundation along their coastlines. This issue significantly impacts the tourism and fisheries sectors while also posing public health risks. The October conference will bring together about 250 delegates to foster dialogue and action, as well as the development of and investment in extensive value chains to tackle this challenge. Discussions will focus on creating a sustainable value chain for sargassum through research and innovation and enabling environment and transformation. Topics will include the latest developments in research, monitoring, prevention, collection, treatment, and disposal of sargassum biomass. The event will also bring together public authorities from Caribbean and Latin American countries, European overseas countries and territories, private sector financing institutions, the scientific community, and NGOs. This gathering aims to connect various stakeholders to identify investment and partnership opportunities that support both public initiatives and commercial operations throughout the sargassum value chain. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
ECCB applauds St. Lucia's government decision to enact minimum wage legislation. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
On October 1st, 2024, the new minimum wage of $6.52 per hour will come into effect. The announcement of the new wage rate has been widely welcomed by the public and is expected to bring relief to some 40,000 workers who have been struggling to make ends meet due to the existing low wage structure. In a recent interview during his visit to St. Lucia, Timothy Antoine, the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, touched on this action taken by the government of St. Lucia to ensure working-class citizens earn a livable wage.
I don't know if it's livable. I think it's an improvement, and I think the minimum wage has to be looked at. So I'm glad it's being reviewed now.
The governor stressed the importance of finding a balance between a basic wage that allows people to live comfortably and making sure that businesses, particularly small enterprises, can fulfill their obligations when setting the minimum wage.
I think when people hear minimum wage, sometimes they think about the large established businesses, but there are small businesses. A landscaper. To give a personal example, the minimum wage was raised in Grenada, which is where I'm originally from. I'm a currency union man now, so I'm St. Lucian, I'm Antiguan, I'm Grenadian, but I was born in Grenada. The minimum wage there was raised last year, early this year, and my landscaper of 20 odd years said to me, I have to increase the monthly arrangement based on the thing, and of course he has to obey the law, and I respect the law. So I said, okay, well, let's do it. I mean, we made the adjustment because I wanted him to keep his workers as well. So I'm giving a simple example to say small businesses are also impacted. So you have to calibrate
and households,
it. And households. Yeah. So people may say that's not enough, but you have to move it in a thoughtful way where you give the workers an increase which they need and deserve, but also you make sure businesses can stay alive and continue to grow.
Governor Antoine suggested that future considerations for reviewing the minimum wage should take into account a sector-based minimum wage.
The focus ultimately has to be on competencies, so not just qualifications, because they're not quite the same, related but not. Competencies, and you pay for competencies. So as people are able to bring skills, not just subject skills, you should pay for that. And the more skillful you are, the more you should be paid. So I think that is where we should go. That's where we should evolve.
He acknowledged that adjustments to the minimum wage should be done in phases so as to not negatively impact the business sector. For the DPS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
We now bring you these international reports.
The Amazon is burning across South America. Thousands of hectares of wildlife consumed by the flames. In Peru, nearly every region has been affected. Firefighters are overwhelmed. They lack equipment to fight the blazes. People losing their animals and crops are desperately helping them. They say the situation is out of control.
We put the fires out and the next day they ignite again. We are leaving because we are very tired.
The government has sent helicopters to drop water tanks on the worst affected spots. But President Dina Boluarte acknowledges the government is ill-equipped.
With everything we have, we're supporting to fight the fires. Perhaps we don't have enough to provide assistance at a national level because the logistics of our armed forces and police are really poor, and we have to recognize that.
Critics say Boluarte has done too little too late, calling for a state of emergency only on Wednesday. As she focused on political infighting, Congress denied her permission to go to the UN General Assembly next week, while the blazes continued to expand. Experts say wildfires are common this time of the year, but traditional practices of burning fields to prepare the land for the next harvest ignite the disaster cycle.
We do not have a culture of fire prevention because it does not exist. Many people believe that smoke generates rain, yet it's the other way around. It inhibits rain. And this happens every year, but it falls on deaf ears because the authorities are preoccupied with other things.
The Amazon is being destroyed by illegal mining, deforestation and farming, all of which interrupt the cycle that produces rain. As a result, the natural process of putting out the fires takes much longer, posing a much higher risk to the environment and the indigenous population in the forest. Officials say there are thousands of hotspots, potential fires about to be ignited by the high temperature and winds. And while the rains take longer to come, the destruction is likely to grow. Mariana Sanchez, Al Jazeera, Lima.
Lawyers representing 37 women who say they were raped or sexually assaulted by Mohammed Al Fayed say he was a monster and sexual predator whose behaviour was enabled by Harrods, the luxury store he owned until 2010. Harrods' current owners say they're appalled by the allegations and have a settlement process in place for alleged victims. Former manager of Fulham FC's women's team has told us that female players weren't allowed to be left alone with the billionaire when he owned the club because it was well known that he liked young blonde girls. It all comes after the BBC aired a documentary which heard testimony from more than 20 survivors. Since then, more people have approached the BBC and the Metropolitan Police with further allegations. In a moment, we'll speak to our UK correspondent Daniel Sanford and to Laura Scott, who's at Fulham's ground. First, here's Helena Wilkinson with developments. And to warn you, this report contains descriptions of sexual violence.
Mohammed Al Fayed, the billionaire who was a powerful figure in British society, the former boss of Harrods and one-time owner of Fulham Football Club. He was also the father of Dodi Al Fayed, who died in a car crash with Princess Diana. At an extraordinary news conference, more shocking and disturbing details about Al Fayed's behaviour towards female staff at Harrods were revealed.
Mohammed Al Fayed, my boss, the person I work for, pushed himself onto me.
I fell to the floor with him still on top of me, but I managed to kick free. He just laughed at me. He then composed himself, and he told me in no uncertain terms that I was never to breathe a word of this to anyone. I was subjected to an unnecessary and intrusive medical examination. I was never given those results. I was subjected to AIDS and STD testing without consent, and now believe in hindsight I was checked for my purity.
Lawyers representing Al Fayed's accusers said this was one of the worst cases of sexual exploitation they had ever seen.
We will say it plainly, Mohammed Al Fayed was a monster. Our aim, and our single aim, is to seek justice for the survivors.
Alongside American lawyer Gloria Allred, who's represented dozens of victims of high-profile, powerful men.
Mohammed Al Fayed died last year at 94 years old. He died without ever taking responsibility for what he did to many of his victims. These victims have suffered for years, even decades.
Accusations had been made about Al Fayed over a number of years. In 2008 and 2009, the police did get involved in a sexual assault case of a 15-year-old girl. But the Crown Prosecution Service decided there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. And then 3 more times between 2018 and 2023, the police consulted prosecutors for advice on other allegations. But Mohammed Al Fayed died before the investigation was complete. Harrods, which has been under new ownership for more than a decade, said today that more accusers have come forward since the BBC documentary. They say they are utterly appalled at the allegations and have expressed sympathy for the victims. They've also said they're providing a compensation scheme for ex-employees who say they were attacked by Al Fayed. Highlighted here is John McNamara, Al Fayed's then head of security. The former senior Met police officer was today named as one of those who threatened some of the victims. Speaking to the BBC for the first time, a woman we're calling Kate said that Al Fayed assaulted her a number of times. She was 22 when she started working at Harrods.
He's an absolute monster. He knew exactly what he was doing, as did many other people throughout the organisation. I received threatening phone calls after I'd left Harrods, threats not to speak.
The police have urged any victims of sexual assault to contact them. For Al Fayed's accusers, there's regret that he's no longer alive to face justice. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News.
Well, Laura Scott is at Fulham FC tonight, which Mohammed Al Fayed owned from 1997 to 2013. Laura, you've been talking to a former manager of the women's team. Tell us more about what he said.
Yes, Jane. I've been speaking to a former manager of Fulham Football Club's women's team who told me that extra precautions were put in place to protect female players from Mohammed Al Fayed. Gota Halganez, who managed the team from 2001 to 2003, said that members of staff became aware that the late billionaire liked young blonde girls, and as a result, the players weren't allowed to be left alone with the late billionaire owner who owned the club for 16 years from 1997 to 2013. Earlier, we had a statement from Fulham saying that they were deeply concerned by the disturbing reports that have come to light about Al Fayed, and they said that they were trying to establish whether anyone at this club had been affected, encouraging anyone with information to come forward, not just to the club, but to the police as well. And whilst lawyers representing women who've accused Al Fayed of sexual abuse say they aren't currently representing anyone who previously worked here, they said their investigations are ongoing and that wherever Al Fayed went, there would be victims. Tomorrow, Fulham play here at Craven Cottage, and we know that many fans are calling for the chance in honour of Al Fayed to be brought to an end.
Laura, thank you. Let's talk to Daniel Sanford as well. Daniel, we know that previous police investigations have got nowhere. What are the options now?
Yeah, Mohammed Al Fayed was investigated 4 times by the Metropolitan Police on allegations of sexual assault or rape. The last investigation only ended because he died, but I think the most significant investigation was that allegation by the 15-year-old girl. Police struggled to corroborate her story, which is perhaps not surprising when you consider that the BBC documentary was told by one woman who says that she was herself raped, that when she was interviewed about the 15-year-old's allegations, a Harrods lawyer was present. Either way, the Metropolitan Police, when they put the file to the Crown Prosecution Service said there wasn't enough evidence to bring charges. The head of the CPS at that time was Sir Keir Starmer. Downing Street says that the file didn't cross his desk. And that brings us to today, and whether there's any way of getting some kind of criminal justice for these women. Obviously, Mohammed Al-Fayed can't be put in the dock, he's dead. But actually, because so many women have come forward now, I think it would in theory be possible for detectives to go through their accounts and look for patterns, look and see if there was anybody that seemed to be facilitating a lot of these assaults and rapes. And that actually does open up the possibility of somebody having a conspiracy charge or a trafficking charge brought against them. But I have to say that at this stage, this is just a sort of theoretical possibility.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
A turn of the head saved former President Donald Trump in this moment. Immediately, the question, how could this happen? A gunman, 20-year-old Thomas Crooks, able to climb on top of the roof of a nearby building, able to take a shot, Trump just 135 meters away. Now the acting director of the Secret Service listing all of the failures that allowed that to happen.
The Secret Service did not give clear guidance or direction to our local law enforcement partners. There were communication deficiencies between law enforcement personnel at the site.
The Secret Service did not deploy its counter-drone technology because of a technical issue. Agents and local police were on different radio frequencies in different command posts. The Secret Service was not aware police were looking for a suspicious person until shots were fired. Agents realized the roof was a security risk, but didn't follow up and didn't ask local police to stage there, even though they had volunteered.
At approximately 18:10 local time,
Rose says those problems have been fixed, as he says he witnessed at a recent event.
you had Secret Service agents in that room monitoring frequencies and listening to what was going on those state and local networks. In addition to that, the locals were flying a drone in proximity to the site. That drone feed was being beamed into that unified command post, and our agents had total domain awareness about what was going on. Also, they had traffic cams. They were able to pipe in those traffic cams into that unified command post.
He said the agents that made mistakes here will be held accountable. He would not say how or how many. The U.S. House passed a bill also on Friday saying candidates need to get the same protection as presidents. Rose says Donald Trump has been getting that since the July attack, crediting it for stopping another assassination attempt just days ago at a Florida golf course. But he warned he needs more money and more agents, because he doesn't see the threat going away anytime soon. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
U.S. stocks finished mixed on Friday, although the Dow Jones Industrial Average notched another closing high. This comes one day after a strong rally driven by a larger than usual half-point interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve. The Dow rose 0.1%, while the S&P 500 dropped 0.2 and the Nasdaq lost nearly 0.4. Markets expect the Fed to keep lowering borrowing costs, with the odds of another half-point reduction at the central bank's November meeting now sitting at 50%, while the chance of a quarter-point move is also 50%, according to CME's FedWatch tool. But BMO Family Office Chief Investment Officer Carol Schleif said the messaging from policymakers has not been that clear-cut.
They warned us, again, still, that they'll be very data dependent. They'll take it meeting by meeting. They're not promising at all that they're going to continue at a 50 basis point rate or even a quarter basis point rate, but they're trying to give some clarity to business owners that they've started the series of cuts. They'll be very data dependent in how they do it, but they definitely did not want to get behind the curve.
Stocks on the move included FedEx, which sunk 15% after lowering its full-year revenue forecast. Nike climbed about 7% after saying former senior executive Elliott Hill will rejoin the company to succeed John Donahoe as CEO. And Intel added more than 3% after the Wall Street Journal reported Qualcomm made an offer to buy the semiconductor company.
You were listening to the Midday News on WinFM 98.9. The headlines?
St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister leads delegation to 79th United Nations General Assembly. Grenada increases access to climate finance with UK and 5C's support. Guyana's government to launch commission of inquiry into the troubles in the early 2000s. Grenada will host the second European Union Caribbean Global Gateway Conference on Sargassum in October. ECCB applauds St. Lucia's government decision to enact minimum wage legislation. Internationally, Peru wildfires. Country declares a state of emergency.
Thank you for listening.
That was the WinFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, and Cariboury.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Delisle Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoy the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
That's the familiar sound of the school bell ringing to let you know that class is in session. Listen up, class. Let your parents know that the place to shop for your back-to-school essentials is the TDC Home and Building Depot in St. Kitts and City Drugstore Nevis Limited. Get up to 30% off backpacks, notebooks, pens, pencils, school bundles, printers, and more. And while they're there, be sure to have them ask about the tech tools for teachers so we can help you achieve even more success. And remind them about Flash Sale Fridays, when you can receive even more savings just in time for the new school year. Now you know.
See you at TDC Home and Building Depot and City Drugstore Nevis Limited. Class is now dismissed. Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News. I am Jermaine Abel, sitting in for the second half of the program today. In the first half of the program, we heard about the Caribbean Telecommunications Union meeting slated for St. Kitts and Nevis, and we also discussed a little bit of the roles and the impact of telecommunications on the youth across the Caribbean region. But for the second half, we will revisit a bit of the debate from the Parliament this week. We'll hear calls from the Attorney General for people to stop sharing rumors and other false information. He sent a strong warning. He was speaking about the threats faced by the Minister of Tourism, Marsha Henderson. And for quite some time, we've been telling people to be cautious in terms of what they share and how they share what they share. And I really hope that people can listen quite attentively to what the Attorney General had to say. More specifically, those people who believe that deleting their messages from their phones will actually get rid of the problem. So please take note and listen.
I recognize the Honorable Attorney General.
May it please you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I also wish to extend Independence greetings to our fellow citizens and residents of St. Kitts, our beautiful country, St. Kitts and Nevis. And I want to repeat the theme for this year: together a people proud and strong, Independence 41. I want people to remember that. But on a less light note, Madam Speaker, I am very upset. I am upset because there are people in this country who feel that it is okay to attack other people under the guise of their electronic devices. In the recent past, there have been numerous attacks at my friend and colleague, the member for number 2, by way of WhatsApp forwards, TikTok videos, and other ridiculous allegations that were made that has put her life and the life of her child at risk. We cannot be a society where we make fun and joke of things like that. There are people in this country who treat political party over everything else. They do not care about the lives of other people. They do not care about decency. All they want to do is attack and win political points. They are nasty people, and they must be condemned. And Madam Speaker, I do not want to take this spirit of celebration that we're in Independence 41 and bring a downer to it. But I felt it needed to be said, Madam Speaker. And I want to point out to our people, there are laws in this country that make it a criminal offense to either make or forward statements, letters, any sort of art, communications by electronic device that either harasses, threatens, intimidates, molests other people. It is called unlawful communications. And Madam Speaker, I want the people of this country to know that if the culture of forwarding and sending around things that could cause harm to other people is not stopped voluntarily by the goodwill and decency within your heart, the police are going to have to stop it. And the police have the authority and they have the law to take your phone, and don't matter what you delete, it can be found. And the police will charge you and bring you to justice. So we as a people, we have two choices. Continue to be reckless, irresponsible, not caring about people, not just because they're in public office, you could say anything about them. It's improper, it is not decent, it is not becoming of people of this great country. It is a time now, and I hope they put this on TikTok. It's the time now to change that attitude. When you see lies and ridiculousness on your phone, delete it. Do not click forward. When you go before a camera and say you're some sort of TikTok star and doing things for the likes, the police can come for you. And I say that strongly, Madam Speaker, come defending my friend and colleague. It upset me. A woman with a child, and people following foolishness, and people know it's stupidness, but they're forwarding it still. They're broadcasting it. They're using it and making other videos on it, knowing that it's not true. And all of it, we should just put up with it because people say we have freedom of speech. No. I ain't going to tell you about the Constitution. I'm the Attorney General of this country. The Constitution allows you to have freedom of speech, subject to public safety and people's individual rights. You cannot just go and say anything you want. I know they have petitions and divisions living in the states who believe because the states allow you to say anything they want, they could say anything they want. Stay up there. Come out of our internet, right? If you do that, we can send an MLAT to the US. We could find you, we could prosecute you, and we could get you extradited to St. Kitts to face charges. I want it to be clear. This foolishness has to stop. People are endangering people's lives because there are some people who believe anything they see. And it should not be tolerated in this country. And I'm sorry and I apologize, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm upset. Because I'm a father too. And I'm a person in public office. And people think you could just say anything. That is not right. And there are laws, and believe you me, we might have to come in here, because the sentence is 2 years, we might have to come in here to increase the sentence. People are too reckless. And I want to point out what the section says. When a person without lawful excuse or justification knowingly uses a computer system, a smartphone is a computer system, to send a message, letter, or electronic communication that is obscene, constitutes a threat, or is menacing in character to a recipient and intends to cause the recipient or any other person who is the subject of that message or letter or electronic communication to feel intimidated, molested, harassed, or threatened, he or she commits an offense and is liable to summary conviction of a fine of $10,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 12 months or to both such fine and imprisonment. And where a person without lawful excuse or justification publishes the message, letter, or electronic communication referred to in subsection 1 to another person, not being a person who is the subject of that message, letter, or communication, that first person commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $15,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 2 years or to both such fine and imprisonment. So it's even more serious to forward it. And people need to know that it's unacceptable for that to happen. I am not saying don't have your opinions and don't express your opinions loudly, but don't threaten people and use lies to put people under risk because the police are going to come for you. Not me. The police are going to come for you. They're going to use the force of the law and you're going to meet the judge. Madam Speaker, we have to change this culture where we feel we can say anything about anyone and there are no repercussions. All I'm going to say is I support my sister, my friend, my learned colleague, the member for number 2, who was elected fairly and squarely, and I will not stand by as Attorney General and allow our society to go into the dirt that is propelled by certain people who sit in this house for 5 minutes and leave. They don't even have respect for this house. They come, they mark their name, and they leave. 2 years we've been sitting in this house. Never once they sit through a session. And they put their propaganda people to put out all sorts of things, putting people's lives at risk. They call me Lucifer. But I ain't afraid of nobody, you know. I ain't afraid of nobody. But they want to demonize people for the sake of politics. Nasty people. And this house, which is a house where people are elected to serve, and those people choose other people to serve with them, is the place to tell our people when certain things are not acceptable in a society. Do not follow them. Do not follow evil. Find the good in your heart. And when you see the foolishness being circulated and you get it on your phone, delete it. When you see it come in a group chat, chastise the person who sent it. We have to change this culture. Otherwise, our children coming up are going to be worse than us. We have a duty to the next generation to cut that cancer out right now. Madam Speaker, and it's personal because it's part of my family that was attacked. And the police have already gotten the advice and the ammunition from the DPP's office, the Attorney General's office, and we will come and get your phones. So stop it now. This is the last warning. I support my sister, the member for number 2. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome back. And we'll continue to hear more from the Attorney General from several of the critical pieces of legislation that was discussed earlier in the week.
Madam Speaker, may it please you. I rise to lead the debate of and have read for a second time this August Assembly the bill shortly titled Proceeds of Crime and Asset Recovery Amendment Bill 2024. Madam Speaker, this relatively short yet important bill is the last step before the operationalization of our Proceeds of Crime and Asset Recovery Act 2020, which I refer to as POCARA. Madam Speaker, with your leave, I first intend to establish why St. Kitts and Nevis needs strong proceeds of crime and asset recovery structures and institutions before I describe what POCARA is used for. Then I will seek to explain why we prioritize the confiscation of proceeds of crime and why we seek to recover assets that are achieved through criminal activity. I will also rationalize what the amendment actually achieves, whilst emphasizing the critical significance of the amendment in strengthening the ability of law enforcement to recover proceeds of crime and recover assets gained from criminal activity. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I will aim to provide our people with a comprehensive understanding of why we must take this step and how it aligns with our overarching commitment to combat crime in our Federation and preserve the integrity of our justice system. These are fundamental elements in achieving a sustainable island state. Madam Speaker, first question. Why strengthen our proceeds of crime, confiscation, and asset recovery institutions? We have a shared crime problem in the region. A lot of it is rooted in our geographical location, being one of the two major highways between drug production in the south and drug consumption in the north, and between firearm manufacturing in the north to firearm use in the south to protect that illicit trade. We cannot change that tectonic reality, nor can we change the drug demand of our northern neighbors. What we can change is our ability to discourage the bad guys from taking the truck stop that is St. Kitts and Nevis. We do this in two complementary ways: detection and deterrence. We make it known clearly to that underground world that we have effective laws, political will, competent authorities, innovative policies, and advanced technology to detect their illicit activities, and we have the robust asset recovery infrastructure to seize their ill-gotten gains. That is why this proceeds of crime, confiscation, and civil asset recovery are so important. We want to remove St. Kitts and Nevis from the illicit highway that is bringing death and destruction to our young men in particular. We don't grow cocoa here, nor manufacture cocaine here, but our young men are either part of the transshipment of cocaine and the guns needed to protect it, or they're distributors themselves for the little demand we have here. What do they do this for, Madam Speaker? Money. What will force them to think twice about doing this? Seizure of their money. It's an ABC solution as far as I am concerned. So what is POCARA? I'll start with a brief history, Madam Speaker. The Proceeds of Crime Act, Cap 4.28, known simply as POCA, was enacted in November 2000 and has been amended 13 times since then, the last amendment being in October 2023. The Proceeds of Crime and Asset Recovery Act 2020, POCARA, was passed in January 2020 and published in June 2020, but was never brought into force because there were some administrative issues that needed to be resolved prior to implementation. POCARA serves several critical purposes. It provides a legal framework for freezing, forfeiture, and confiscation of the proceeds of crime. This is a crucial tool for law enforcement to deprive criminals of the financial benefits they have gained through illegal activities. It aims to disrupt and deter criminal activities by depriving criminals of their illicit gains. It enhances the ability of law enforcement and judicial authorities to trace, freeze, and recover assets derived from criminal conduct. It promotes transparency and accountability in financial transactions to combat money laundering and related offenses. The bill creates offenses and procedures to prevent money laundering, a process that criminals often use to legitimize the proceeds of their crimes. It facilitates international cooperation in the fight against transnational crime and money laundering by enabling the enforcement of overseas freezing, forfeiture, and confiscation orders, emphasizing the international dimension of crime and the need for cross-border cooperation. The foundation of POCARA, therefore, is our ability to identify, pursue, prosecute, and recover the proceeds of crime at all levels and recover assets gained through criminal activity. Over the past 2 years, our team at the Attorney General's Office have comprehensively reviewed the POCARA and are now ready to bring it into force, as we are satisfied it can fulsomely be implemented in practice. Part of that preparation, Madam Speaker, was the training of our various law enforcement stakeholders. That is why the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs did not hesitate to answer the call to partner with the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, INL, and the National Center for State Courts, NCSC, most recently in April this year, to host a civil recovery conference. At that conference, I promised to the INL and the NCSC that we will build on the foundations of this partnership to develop the skills within our asset recovery stakeholder institutions that will make an impact in our ability to tackle high-level crime and remove St. Kitts and Nevis from that international underground illicit activity highway. From a macro level, Madam Speaker, that workshop stood as a testament to our Federation's unwavering commitment to combat corruption, uphold the rule of law, and ensure justice prevails in our societies. The project, conducted under the auspices of the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, signified a significant milestone in the collaborative efforts between our Federation and the United States of America. The post-workshop reviews I received proved that the training bolstered our capacity in identifying, investigating, and adjudicating cases of civil asset recovery with precision and effectiveness. Madam Speaker, at that conference were officials from the Customs Department, the DPP's office, the White Collar Crime Unit, and other government agencies, FSRC, etc., so that they could learn to handle the new provisions of our POCARA. Because it doesn't make sense to just have good laws. You have to be able to implement them in practice. And by raising the standard of civil asset recovery knowledge and best practices, we are fortifying the pillars of our criminal justice system. This initiative has clarified agency roles, fostered cooperation. If you attend a conference with your persons from agencies in different areas, you foster cooperation, you figure out where your weaknesses are, where the strengths are from the other institutions, and then all can work together to have an effective asset recovery system. And it instills confidence in our ability to address the asset recovery cases promptly and accurately. And what is going to come out of this, Madam Speaker, is that they're going to have a test exercise. So all of the training that was done by the various stakeholder entities is going to be put into a practice exercise to see if everyone is ready to act when they have a particular case. And that is how you strengthen the capacity. So our collective efforts not only enhanced our ability to combat financial crimes, but also strengthen the trust and reciprocity amongst our agencies. Through this project, we are laying the foundation for a more just, transparent, and accountable society. And Madam Speaker, we want to discourage anyone involved in illicit activities and criminal activities to stay away from St. Kitts and Nevis. Whatever money you gain from those illegal activities, the state will seize, freeze, take away your properties, and you just won't be comfortable practicing those illegal activities in St. Kitts and Nevis. This robust training will now meet up with the strong laws to create a marriage in which we can make a profound difference in advancing the rule of law and combating high-level illicit activities in St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider region, because it is a regional project. As I said before, we are unfortunately one of the two highways in the drug trade. So we have to work together in order to deter and prevent our islands from being used as drug trafficking hubs. Now, recovering the proceeds of crime serves as a powerful deterrent to criminals for several compelling reasons. First and foremost, it hits the criminals where it hurts the most, their financial gain. I wish to highlight 5 key reasons why this is such an effective deterrent. 1, criminals engage in illegal activities to profit from their actions. When law enforcement successfully recovers the ill-gotten gains, it not only deprives them of the rewards of their crimes, but also imposes a financial burden in terms of legal fees, fines, and restitution. This financial setback discourages potential criminals who weigh the risks and rewards of criminal activity. 2, criminals understand that their criminal proceeds could be seized, making them hesitant to enjoy their illicit gains. This fear of losing their assets or wealth becomes a significant disincentive to engage in criminal activities in the first place. 3, many criminals use their proceeds to fund extravagant lifestyles or invest in legal activities. The threat of losing these assets can lead to a significant decline in their quality of life. This loss of comforts and status acts as a deterrent. 4, successful recovery of the proceeds of crime sets an example and sends a clear message to potential criminals that illegal activities will not go unpunished. The fear of facing similar consequences acts as a deterrent across society. And lastly, 5, asset recovery limits the resources available for criminal enterprises, making it harder for criminal organizations to operate and expand. This financial squeeze can weaken their ability to commit crimes in an organized way. And what does the particular amendment we are debating today do, Madam Speaker? It proposes several significant changes to the original act, which is now 4.5 years old. Firstly, the definition of law enforcement officer is expanded to include officers of the white-collar crime unit. The tainted property definition is revised to include property used in connection with unlawful conduct or intended for such use. Madam Speaker, you remember last year, October, we debated an amendment to the POCA, which is now still in force, which dealt with the tainted property definition. The similar definition adjustment is now being made for the POCARA, so that we could bring the POCARA into place to replace the POCA, and we could have the similar protections that are needed in the POCARA. New definitions are introduced, such as digital currency, person to include corporate bodies, virtual asset, and white-collar crime unit. A new division for forfeiture is added for the forfeiture of property, proceeds, or instrumentalities related to criminal offenses. The amendments allow the DPP, that's the Director of Public Prosecutions, to apply for forfeiture orders against tainted property and confiscation orders against benefits derived from those offenses. Madam Speaker, as a former prosecutor yourself, you know what confiscation orders and forfeiture orders involve. And they are a major deterrent for criminals, and it also helps to prosecute when you have these funds frozen, so that if you are successful, the funds could be dealt with afterwards. The amendment details the process for forfeiting property upon conviction of an offense, including provisions for absconding persons. It specifies that forfeited property vests in the Crown and outlines the registration requirements for registrable property. I want to highlight that one, Madam Speaker. When a person is successfully prosecuted or there is asset recovery of their illicit gains. So, for example, if a criminal engaged in some sort of criminal activity and bought a condo in Frigate Bay, and it was determined that that condo was bought from gains from a criminal activity, and there now is a forfeiture of that condo, the condo then belongs to the state. If there is a seizure of cash that was gained from criminal activity, and then that cash is now forfeited, it is forfeited to the state for the benefit of the people because it was ill-gotten, Madam Speaker. So it doesn't just go into the wilderness, it actually becomes a state asset after the forfeiture. The amendment establishes procedures for notifying interested parties and amending applications for forfeiture orders. It enhances cooperation with foreign authorities in matters related to money laundering, including identifying, tracing, freezing, seizing, or forfeiting property. That is naturally very important, Madam Speaker, because the proceeds of crime can be used in other jurisdictions, and there needs to be collaboration between the different jurisdictions. The amendment grants customs officers and other law enforcement officers the authority to seize and detain cash or monetary instruments exceeding a specified value if suspected of being linked to unlawful activities. The amendment expands listed assets to include personal computers, mobile phones, and other movable electronic devices as listed assets subject to seizure. A new section on money laundering is introduced, which defines the offense of money laundering, including engaging in transactions involving proceeds of crime and receiving or transferring such property. The amendment specifies penalties for individuals and corporate bodies convicted of money laundering. It creates a forfeiture fund to manage proceeds from the sale of forfeited or confiscated property, with a management team composed of members of the National Anti-Money Laundering Committee. So if there's a pool of money that is seized, that is confiscated, that is forfeited, there is a management committee to decide what should be done. Should it go into criminal deterrent activities? Should it go into a scanner at customs to deter illicit trade in drugs and so forth? And the amendment ensures that proceedings commenced under the previous Proceeds of Crime Act, the POCA, continue to apply, because naturally there's a transition now with the safe passage of this bill from POCA to POCARA. And with the passage of the amendments, Madam Speaker, POCARA can now, if there is safe passage, be brought into force. How do steps like this, Madam Speaker, take us towards a sustainable island state? When the public perceives that the legal system is effectively addressing the issue of criminal proceeds of crime, it can lead to increased trust in the justice system. A robust legislative toolbox, along with effective enforcement of proceeds of crime legislation, helps maintain public confidence and demonstrate the government's commitment to combating crime. The effective recovery of proceeds of crime reinforces the rule of law, instilling confidence in the justice system. This, in turn, dissuades individuals from resorting to illegal activities. Recovering the proceeds of crime acts as a formidable deterrent to criminals by targeting their financial interests, instilling fear of loss, and demonstrating the legal consequences of criminal behavior. This multifaceted approach not only punishes wrongdoers, but also discourages others from engaging in unlawful activities, contributing to a safer and more just society. Let us remember that our society is built upon the principles of justice and the rule of law. We need not go further than the first paragraph within our Constitution, which states that the people of St. Christopher and Nevis desire the creation of a climate of economic well-being in the context of respect for law and order. Modern legislation like the POCARA, in its version that we have proposed today, strengthens those foundations, making it clear that to all that crime does not pay, and that the rights of the innocent will always be protected. In doing so, we stand united in our commitment to a safer and more just society for all, as we charter the course of our nation towards a sustainable island state with robust institutions that can outlast and subvert any future attempts to destroy our country through rampant corruption based on greed. Those days are over, Madam Speaker. Together, on the constitutional commitment to achieve our national objectives with a unity of purpose, we can further strengthen our ability to combat crime and recover the proceeds of criminal activity, ensuring a safer and more just future for our nation. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I wish the Proceeds of Crime and Asset Recovery Amendment Bill 2024 safe passage. May it please you.
We'll take a quick break now, and on the other side, we'll continue with more Inside the News.
People make the world go round.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
Give your little smartie the perfect smart start for their future with CHIP, the child investment plan from TDC Financial Services. Invest in your child's next step, and we know what's next is always changing.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
CHIP is a long-term plan with no minimum deposit, no monthly commitment, and you're guaranteed a special high interest rate per annum.
I want chip. I want chip too.
Visit TDC Financial Services today and get CHIP, the child investment plan, providing the best head start for every child.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And we also heard from Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew.
Would you leave, Madam Speaker, I rise to make a statement on the point as Minister of various ministries. First of all, let me start out by wishing all happy independence on our 41st anniversary. We have multiple ministries that I need to update the country on, and so I'll take this opportunity to do such. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Finance, I want to once again remind our country as to where we met things in this country from a financial standpoint. We came into office on the 5th of August 2022. We recognize, Madam Speaker, on taking office that there were a number of serious troubling matters. And I will keep saying it, Madam Speaker, because I think everything has to be taken into context. But most of all, there must be context. Our people must be given the information. There must be transparency, and there must be openness, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are some who do not want to hear it, but it would be remiss of me as the Minister of Finance and as the Prime Minister not to remind our people as to what we found here in St. Kitts and Nevis with respect to the economy. Madam Speaker, let me say from the onset that the people were misled, Madam Speaker. The audit shows that. The first budget that was passed demonstrated that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we found some very troubling things that were shocking and rocking the very foundation of this country. Much of it was hidden, Madam Speaker, from the eyes of the people. It was orchestrated. It was planned. From my perspective, what was done was nothing short of an act to deceive the people and to make sure that those who would benefit, that their acts would be hidden. It tells me that people sat down and planned it. It took a great deal of organization, a great deal of planning, a great deal of putting together. Because when one looks at this, it must be quickly recognized that this plan was a master plan. And those who orchestrated it had to have been deliberate, but also have the know-how of how you can do accounting like this to get away with it. Most of us here are not accountants. The people in the country are not accountants. And there are accountants who will not even recognize what was done. And that is why we had to bring in forensic accountants and experts for them to look through the record and find exactly what was taking place. And that was tabled right here. And I'm speaking of the audit of the Development Bank, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it shows that the bank was in serious trouble. The bank was in debt of $333 million, Madam Speaker. Serious trouble. And in order to hide that, the deliberate action was taken that there would be no external auditing of the bank. And that was stopped between 2018 and 2019, Madam Speaker. That is not mentioned in the annual budget address. There were no audits tabled, Madam Speaker, of the bank in this honorable house. None. It was all hidden from the people. And then when the opposition back then sought to ask questions, they were shut down, Madam Speaker. But today, we are facing a bank that is $333 million in debt. No audit. All the external institutions who would support the development bank, all of them withdrew their business with the bank because part of a basic requirement to do business with external financial institutions is that you must have a current audit. That was deliberate, Madam Speaker. And because the development bank is owned by the government but seen as a private company, sometimes it's not discussed as it should be in the halls of Parliament. And so it was hidden. I'm sure there were people in that administration who did not even know what was taking place in the development bank because of how well orchestrated the plan was executed. Madam Speaker, $333 million in debt. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's over $250 million. That equates to about a quarter of our annual budget, or maybe just over a quarter. Significant. Madam Speaker, hidden from the people. Where did that money come from, Madam Speaker? A lot of that money came from Social Security. Again, because in the annual budget, no one asks about Social Security. And so you took the money from there, you put it in the bank, Social Security is not being paid back, no audits of the bank, external audits, so nobody really knows what's going on. And then the Minister of Finance, who was responsible for the bank, his brother was the CEO for Development Bank. It's a fact. And his brother was also on the board for Development Bank. This was well orchestrated. Social Security, sorry. The Board of Social Security. This was well orchestrated, Madam Speaker. Well orchestrated. And so Social Security has over $130 million in Development Bank. Development Bank took the decision to stop paying Social Security then. And where did that money go? What happened to that money? And so everybody's thinking Development Bank is opening on a Sunday, Saturday night. We remember those days when the big truck used to pull up. I want us to drag our memory not to forget that. Because sometimes with time we tend to forget, and people might ask, why do I repeat it? Because it is a fundamental aspect of our economy and how it is affecting it, even presently, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that money we learned through the audit again that persons used to be sent from the Development Bank to go over to the other bank to collect that money in cash in a duffel bag. $500,000 in cash, $600,000 in cash, $700,000 in cash, to be brought back to the Development Bank, where in a boardroom that money would be split up and leave the bank in bags, Madam Speaker. But most of that money disappeared down a dark hole, Madam Speaker. I mean, this is what took place. This was orchestrated. And I'm saying again, there's a case coming. But of course, the legal process is in play. Because the people would want to know what happened to all of that money. Where did it go? Madam Speaker, I want to say today that you had a program that they call the Peace Program. There were people in the Peace Program who did not know what was taking place on the back end, Madam Speaker. All of this money missing in the name of the Peace Program. They did not know that Social Security was suffering as a result. They did not know that the audits, the external audits, were stopped, and that the Development Bank was entering to a very precarious situation on the precipice of collapse. Very well orchestrated. And there were good people associated who meant well, Madam Speaker. I don't decry their efforts. But then at the back end, we had, Madam Speaker, well orchestrated, hidden from the people. And then some people say, Lord, I got some money in my pocket. Oh, they got money over here and money over there. But it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Continuously taken from a drum that is running empty and dangerously empty. The drum being, of course, the Development Bank and Social Security. Putting people's social security at risk. We had to pump millions of dollars, Madam Speaker, into the Development Bank so it can do some business, and it's picking up its business, so that it could carry out its mandate and immediately bring in auditors, apart from the forensic auditors who gave us what was taking place, to bring in auditors so that we can go back and re-establish those relationships. For example, with proper relationships with the CDB and the European Development Bank, reputable organizations that are refusing to do business with St. Kitts and Nevis because of the state of the Development Bank. Madam Speaker, I want this to be clear. As the Minister of Finance, I have to say this so that people can know exactly what took place. Because we were able to pump millions upon millions into Development Bank, we were able to restart our student loans, our mortgage program, small business loan program. And then Development Bank now had to raise that money to pay to Social Security so that Social Security would not be in any threat. And today, I'm happy to say that we were able to do that. Madam Speaker, when you have to use money to do that, that have consequences. It has consequences, real life consequences for people. It means that the bank in itself would not be able to carry out as much as activities as it would like. However, it is carrying out activities and regaining its reputation. It means, Madam Speaker, that you would have put Social Security at risk, and we had to avoid that. Those monies could have been used for other things. Build homes, fix schools, Madam Speaker, fix roads, give people water. But if we did not pump all those millions in and those institutions were put at risk or collapse, what would happen to the country on a whole? Madam Speaker, it is like a man got money in his pocket, going around buying and spending, but he ain't paying his bills. And Skelly coming to cut him off because he ain't pay. Or the water department, or the cable, or he had a loan and he ain't pay for it because he just spending his money and not respecting the obligations that he has. This is what happened here, Madam Speaker. Just spend. I don't care what happened to the Development Bank. Just spend. I don't care what happened to Social Security. Just spend. I don't care what happened to the CBI. I don't care what happened to the coffers of the government. Just spend. And so we had to inherit that now and stabilize all of that. And those who perpetrated this on the people going around talking nonsense. Madam Speaker, the full picture is there now. It took some time to get the full picture. But on this 41st Independence Anniversary, the full picture is now there, Madam Speaker. So I want to say that I'm happy to report that Social Security is in a much better place, and it will remain there. I want to report that the bank is roaring back to be a reputable institution here in St. Kitts and Nevis, to be respected throughout the region, Madam Speaker. Those are things we should be proud of. Madam Speaker, the other thing as the Minister of Finance I want to bring forward is the CBI program. For the first time in our history, I, as the minister responsible for the CBI program, gave the people information on it. Madam Speaker, the actions of those people put the reputation of our CBI at serious risk, to the point where our visa-free access to certain jurisdictions was seriously threatened, Madam Speaker. And so I had to take take drastic action. This government had to take drastic action. We had to take drastic action in compliance with our principles of good governance so that the world and our international partners that this administration is serious when we speak about bringing good governance to that program. Madam Speaker, of course, with these changes, it would cause, to some extent, some upheaval within the program. But I think people who are close to the program, they understood, or they understand rather, why some of those actions had to be taken. Today I want to say that the program is in a much better position to move forward, Madam Speaker. But I want to say it had to go through its challenges. Because again, poor management and mismanagement of the previous administration when it comes to it. And we see all that is being said and so forth. Madam Speaker, the last minister of this was asked publicly, give me some information with respect to the CBI, and his response was, it's an industry secret. No transparency, Madam Speaker. But we made sure that we did everything to strengthen it and had to go through the pain, Madam Speaker. Hard pain, Madam Speaker. Pain like childbirth, Madam Speaker. Serious pain, Madam Speaker. Pain like a kidney stone coming down the track, Madam Speaker. Pain that make you grin and sweat, Madam Speaker. That is why I said from the beginning that this was the most challenging issue that I would have to deal with, Madam Speaker. Interviews to fully establish what the new product would be. We have met with those who are involved, our local service providers and so forth, and we have given them the necessary information. They understand even better now why we had to take the action. The PAP program came from there. The STEP program came from there. So if you have PAP, STEP, peace, all of these come in fundamentally from the revenues there. And you are going to take actions that are going to hurt the program. What are you doing eventually, Madam Speaker? You're hurting all of these programs. And then in addition to that, you dig into the development bank and the social security. And Madam Speaker, the other thing that we are bringing here before the House is the audit of the SIDF accounts. That's the next thing that we are unearthing. Is the more you look, is the more corrupt practices you find, Madam Speaker. So now, it is what we have to do now is real build back. Madam Speaker, with all of this, the country was left without water. The minister responsible is here. The people in the country are crying. Not one well drilled in 7 years, Madam Speaker. Not one well. We know that climate change was coming. We know that the water will continue to decrease the rainfall on an average. We know that the climate change is causing the melting of the ice caps. And this is causing a rise in the sea level. And the rise in the sea level is infiltrating our underground water aquifers. Our underground aquifers. And that infiltration is putting them at risk. Because with more heat, more evaporation of water that falls, decreased rainfall on average, less water to go to the aquifer, and then the aquifer is being threatened by infiltration because of rising sea levels. 3 significant threats, climate threats to our aquifers. We know that. and not one well drilled. And so when you hear people crying out for water as they should, those who were responsible acting as if they did not know that this was coming and did nothing, not one well was dug or drilled, Madam Speaker. And so we had to inherit that. And right away, we had to engage B to say, look, finish the job that you started 7 years previously. And that is why Keon's water situation is so much better now. And now Bede is moving on, I think, to Molyneux, Madam Speaker. But we also recognize that while that is going on, we need other solutions. And so we are building a 2 million gallon water desalination plant. And that, of course, is under the guidance of our minister with responsible for water, the Honorable Congress Maynard. Ground has broken, and the process continues, Madam Speaker. That would be able to give the withdrawal from the aquifers in Bastille a break so that they can rest and get some recharging so that we can prevent as far as possible the infiltration of salt water, which will signal the end of the potable water that we get from them. Madam Speaker, that costs us $50 million. I have to choose between water and everything else. But water is life. It is that essential. If we run out of water here in St. Kitts and Nevis, do we know what that means? If those wells get infiltrated and you lose millions of gallons of water that those wells produce per day, St. Kitts is in serious trouble. Serious trouble. So we had to take the immediate action. Take $50 million, Madam Speaker, and say we need water now. Those are the kind of things we are being faced with. Irresponsible governance. How can you allow the water situation to get so dire in St. Kitts and Nevis? Look at how quick we have acted in less than 2 years. You had 7 years and left us in a situation like this, Madam Speaker. So when people say, so that $50 million, you know what we could have been doing with it? Had there been a systemic approach to this whole thing? Minister of Education that could fix more schools?
Oh yes, I need fixing.
Minister of Roads that could fix more roads?
And I need one of these.
And every new road that I do, another community say they want theirs.
Minister of Tourism that could be 3 more planes and fix up your port? But we have to make sure that water is available. That is how basic this thing is. It's almost as if we have to build back the country from scratch. Because in 2022 we are talking about water. And then you hear for the last 7 years, surplus after surplus after surplus after surplus. It's like a man saying, well, I get me money, and man care about me water, man care about me electricity, and man care about this, and I got a lot of money in my hand. You think he rich. But when you look behind, you say, but what happened to all them bills you ain't paying? But the unpaid bills in St. Kitts and Nevis mean no water. The unpaid bills mean no electricity. The unpaid bills mean a leak in hospital. This is what it means for a country. And that is why we have taken such drastic and radical and very critical and vital even decisions to make sure we protect the people here in St. Kitts and Nevis, Madam Speaker. This is critically important. Madam Speaker, that is why I want to thank the Minister again who is leading this, the Honourable Congress Maynard, for his quick action on the water matter. He has assured me that in short order, we are going to have the commissioning of the desalination plant at Canada within the next few weeks. That will produce around 70,000 gallons of water per day. In short order, a well in Keon has good water situation, much better. A desal plant at the Canada area, which will put it in good stead, and a 2 million gallon to come right here in Bastille. All that and more drilling is taking place around the country, Madam Speaker.
That was Inside the News for today. It was really good being in your company. on next week's edition. We will seek to take a look at the United Nations and some of the decisions and key debate talking points. I know climate change, which is impacting us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, that definitely will be one of the hot button topics being discussed. Started on Friday, where we had the Future Summit, where world leaders are discussing a number of challenges facing countries around the globe. So we'll hear that. St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister, Dr. Terence, who is also scheduled to be speaking during the week. So we'll also take a little bit of a look at his presentation and other leaders from across the Caribbean. But until then, do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe and stay hydrated. Goodbye.
People make